everyone. Welcome back to the Yellow Pages Bookcast. We're your hosts. I'm Jason.
This is Steven, and this is the podcast where we go over Asian American fiction. And, we're just going to do a short review. We're going to do some character breakdowns. We are not going to do casting choices on this book because this book is huge. It's like 850 pages, and we will go over some overall themes and definitely what we enjoyed.
So the book in question is Wall of Storms by Ken Liu, which is book 2 in the Dandelion Dynasty. We reviewed book 1 called Grace of Kings on the previous episode. So, we figured we would try to tackle all these books sort of in a row, because they're pretty long books. So we're trying to keep it at top of mind so we can better talk about it. So yeah, do you want to talk about why you chose this series again?
Well, if you don't mind, I'm okay with doing a non-spoiler overview of the book since you kind of laid it down pretty well, and this book is really long. So whatever I miss, you come in and correct me, okay?
Sure.
Okay, so basically, what this book is it's a immediate sequel to the first book, and basically, it actually does not start with Kunigaru. It starts with his kids, and you find out what's going on within the kingdom, and then you're introduced to another character named, I don't remember her real name, but I know her new name is Zomi. And so you're introduced to a bunch of new characters, and you're introduced to a lot of political turmoil within the kingdom. And another thing that's very interesting is what's the wife's name? The first wife.
Gia.
Okay, Gia goes apeshit in this book.
Well, this is non-spoilers.
Oh,
Just keep it
right.
general.
Okay. So basically, you get what happens to the kingdom after the first book, and then there is a wall of storms, and then you find out what's beyond the wall of storms and what happens after the wall of storms. I don't know how to do that non-spoilery. So, Jason, what would you add to that?
Yeah. So basically, I would divide up this book into the first half and the second half.
Okay.
The first half is, has a lot of I guess palace intrigue / politics.
Mm-hmm.
Because it gives you a look into the power plays fostered by the familiar characters from book 1. You also get to meet Kunigaru's children, who are they're not newborns, but they're I guess they're kids.
They
right?
start out as kids, and then they make it to teens, mid-teens.
Yeah. There's a few time skips in this book. So
not a few.
Yeah, well, okay, a lot. Then a big part of the first half is on the big examination, kind of like, how in historical Chinese culture there's what we call the Gaokao. Well,
Yes.
now it's called Gaokao, but then it was how to become an official, someone of importance, by taking this big old test. So They have a version of this here, and I think that's a pretty good vehicle for them to showcase a lot of the culture in this world that Ken Liu has created, which is pretty cool. So that's all the first half, and then you have in the first half as well some brewing dissent, remnants from the results of book 1, which naturally spill over here.
Right.
So all of that's brewing, and all of that is serving as this slow setting the stage for what happens in the second half, which is more of your traditional war / action. One thing I like about this series so far is how there's no magic per se. It's all science and engineering, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it here. Yeah.
But what I will what I will add to that is we mentioned this in the last book, but the gods are involved in this one, and it takes a really interesting spin on this as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Because on
Definitely.
top of that, like I'm gonna add to your part, your second part of the plot. Basically, it's east meets west was kind of my perspective from it.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah.
Sort of. Without saying too much about that, there is a pretty big threat, and that is what book the second half is primarily about.
Right.
So I'll give some of my non spoiler thoughts on Wall of Storms. Overall, I thought it was a an improvement on book one.
Okay.
Um, and I don't know if it's because like I've already like Ken Liu has already gotten some of the world building out of the way. And now he's just building on it, and now it's like starting to come together better and make sense.
Hmm.
It could be that, but it's what he's created here in this world is so intricate. It's kind of mind boggling. I
Yeah.
don't know how he must have spent like hours and hours just creating stuff
Right.
you know so I'm definitely impressed, and people who are into this are definitely going to be satisfied. The character wise, I did like the characters, but I felt that the old characters from book one kind of took the back seat in a lot of ways, and maybe a little bit too
Mm.
much.
Yeah.
Which, remember, in our review of Jade Legacy,
Yeah.
I mentioned that seeing characters that you've grown to respect and like,
Yeah.
seeing them like fade away due to whether it's old age or injury or just the passage of time is a very weird feeling. And there's a lot of that here.
I'm gonna bring this up. I think Jade Legacy did it a lot better, and I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I want to go back to something that you said the last uh episode that we recorded,
Yeah.
and I think it has to do with Ken Liu's way of writing in terms of perspective, right? Because you mentioned something about the third. What was it? The third person.
Oh yeah, it's like
Is it omniscient or is it the other
yeah,
one?
it's basically it's in third person, but there
Yeah.
aren't any secrets being held back from you, the reader. Like when you're in the character's shoes, you automatically know all of their motives, what they're after. Like there's nothing hidden from you.
But I felt like that was more the case with Jade Legacy and the whole Jade saga with Fonda Lee rather than this book. You know what I realized is Ken Liu is not as intimate in terms of characterization because he's creating such a large scope. He has to choose his characters well, and he wants you to like understand why he's siding with a particular character at times. That's kind of how I felt.
It's also because Jade Legacy had fewer characters,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
exactly.
yeah, so I think yeah, Fonda Lee focused more on like a few of them, which was that's how make the reader just fall in love with your characters. Here,
Yeah.
like there's a lot of characters. Some of them are cool, but you don't get to spend as much time. You're just stretched too thin.
Yeah, exactly. And uh, I'm gonna piggyback off of you because basically you're kind of saying that you liked the way Jade Legacy kind of let him fade away after a long span of time. In this book, people just like, boom, like they just
Yeah,
drop off. You know?
yeah.
Eh,
I felt like in favor of the newer characters,
Yeah,
and kind of had to sacrifice the screen time, or I guess
exactly.
the time of the older ones, which
Yeah.
it makes sense. I'm not sure if I should mention this. Well, yeah, I'll mention this now. It's not really a spoiler. Basically, I feel it feels like he got a lot of criticism on the lack of compelling female characters in book one. And we
Okay.
did talk about Jin being really cool in book one,
Yeah.
but she like popped up near the end, so she didn't really get much time to shine.
Right.
Here, I felt like Ken took that criticism to heart and just like went buck wild with it,
Yeah.
because all the new focus characters are all female, which is great, because
Yeah.
that's not something we saw in this world just yet.
Right.
but that others like Kunigaru, no
Yeah.
spoilers, I feel like they're less of a focus, and he was such like a charming character in book one. Like it kind of didn't feel the same, you know?
Yeah, I agree. So before we actually get into spoilers, let's do personal ratings. Like, how many Kruben do you give this particular book?
Okay, out of five,
Yeah, out of 5 Krubens.
what did I give book one? I think I gave it a. Did I give it a 4 out of 5?
No, I don't think so. I think you went 3.5. I think we both went kind of 3.5 ish.
Okay, I will give this one a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. Okay,
Yeah,
just in case you did give it a 4, what would you what would you give it?
probably a quarter Kruben more than whatever I
Okay,
gave it.
okay. So I will say this book took me so long to read, and Jason will attest to this because I kept texting him. Because the first part of this book, the whole grand examination, bored me terribly. And once it got to a certain point in the book, we're going to talk about it, it ratchets it up like hardcore. And all of a sudden, I saw myself going up to a 4. So at the end of the day, this is a 4 if I gave it a 3.5. But if I gave it a 4, no, I wouldn't have given it a 4, the last book. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
going to
think you
give
gave it
this one. Yeah, I'm giving this one a 4 for sure. We'll explain why in a moment. So why don't we get to spoilers? Okay.
sure, sure, yep.
All
So,
right. Spoiler time.
well, hold on, we gotta plug the book because we like it, right? So,
Oh,
Wall of Storms by Ken Liu. It's been out for I think several years now. So,
yeah,
um, I mean, if you're listening to this, I don't know why you haven't read it yet, but yeah, from what you can hear from our non-spoiler part, yeah, go pick it up. If you like book one, you'll definitely like book two.
yeah.
Cool. So let's dive into spoilers.
All right, Jason. I'm gonna ask you a series of questions. You ready for this?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So, what do you think was your favorite part of this book?
Okay, well, besides the end, because that's an easy one, right?
Yes, besides the end.
Yeah. I will have to say, you know, I think I'm different from you on this, but I do like stories about discovering new things. So I think you mentioned while we're reading it that there was a lull, and that's when
Mhm.
one Zia had a flashback onto how he discovered the how do you pronounce it? Liu Q? Liu
Yeah,
Q?
it's Lyucu. So let's go with Liu Q.
Liu Q? Yeah, the
Yeah.
Liu Q lands.
Right.
I liked it because it's like I know not many people like it because it's like a break from the action, but just like seeing this strange new world. Oh, and the Wall of Storms was cool too. Like I
Yeah.
think that concept where it's like this freaking like tornado wall that just chases you if you get too
Yeah.
close. Like that's
Yeah.
just terrifying. And if you like break beyond it, there's like this strange new land. So that was just really cool to me. I guess reading about that was my yeah, one of my favorites in the book.
Okay. So to counter that really quick, I'm going to say this. My problems had nothing to do with that because I loved the adventures. Like, I love anything Luan is a part of. So I had no conflict with that. What I will say that really threw me off is is the grand examination.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
was just like, what is going on? And why is this grand examination over 8 chapters long, taking up more than 150 pages? And I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to create the political intrigue, right? You're trying to see what the students have to say about how they would fix the kingdom, and then what you're getting is like uh viewpoints from royalty, right? So
Yeah.
that was my major qualm. Another thing that I had an issue with was the jumping back and forth in time.
Hmm.
That did get to me at a point, but I'm gonna agree with you. I really love when they're exploring the new world. I particularly texted you when I was like, dude, I love this new character and she's with Luan all the time. You remember at the beginning when Zomi, they're kind of he kind
Yeah,
of does
they're
origin stories all the time.
yeah they're traveling in the hot air balloon. That was pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. But like Jason said, I think my favorite part is the end battle. And I just love how Jin Mazoda goes out.
Yeah, although like after following all of that epicness, the very last scene where where she's basically dead,
Yeah.
and then was it Zomi has to like make it seem like she's alive. That was like, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, is it wrong that I'm laughing at this scene? Because when someone gets shocked, it's not really graceful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
basically, Zomi like tries to basically they discover electricity, which is pretty epic near
Yeah.
the end. And then she, she just basically shocks Jin's body to like make her stand up. I'm like, I'm sure she's like flailing around like one of those like inflatable balloon men on car dealerships. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I know what he was trying to go after, but that's just what I see, and I was
Yeah.
just laughing. And I'm like, oh man, like such an epic moment just ruined by that. But yeah, the ending, man, that was like something out of Star Trek.
Okay.
Because seriously, like the science and all that stuff it's like cranked up to 11 here.
Okay. How well do you think you could explain it to the listeners?
Explain what?
Like the ending.
You mean the whole final battle?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I guess.
Okay. So before we even do that, I think we should just explain what's going on. Okay. So they so Luan crosses the wall of storms, right? And there's this
Wait,
entire
tell them how though. How he did it was pretty cool.
wasn't he was in a kite, right?
Well, he built like basically a spaceship.
Oh.
Remember? It
Right,
was like
right,
a
right, right.
sealed cocoon thing, and it
Yeah.
was designed to like go way up. And I
Yeah.
think didn't he go over the wall?
Yeah, but the thing was he had to cuz he was tethered to the boat. So
Yeah,
he
so he cut
released
it.
yeah, he released the tether. I it was a capsule, but I think he had like a kite. It was kind of like a kited
Yeah, yeah,
capsule.
yep,
And yeah, I think it went over, but it got caught and then it crashed into the water basically.
yeah. But he got over it.
Yeah. And 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 then there's a couple of chapters where he's like shipwrecked.
Yeah, he's like floating. He's basically castaway. He's like
Yeah.
trying to crack coconuts.
Yeah. And every
Oh,
time.
and what's interesting was like remember Lutho, his patron god
Yeah.
of like logic, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Was like you like beyond this, I can't help you anymore.
Right.
Which is interesting because they're like, okay, now we know the gods that we of the land,
Yeah.
they only have influence here. Outside
Yeah.
beyond Wall of Storm, there's like who knows what's out there.
But what's crazy though is how lucky he is, right? Because
Mhm.
even during that time, there would be like random events that would happen, and you would think, "Oh, there's something watching over him as well," right?
Yeah.
So even like the coconuts came, and what was the animal? It was a Kruben, right?
Yeah, like a baby Kruben just like cracks them for him.
Yeah, cracked it for him, and so basically he discovers what I thought of as a Viking culture, like their warrior. It's a warrior culture.
Yeah. I thought of the Liu Q as a cross between Vikings and Mongols.
Well, here's
Mongols
yeah,
because they're dragons. They're
uh huh,
let me see, Garafinas.
Garifin,
Like they
Garanifin,
depend on their dragons for everything. Kind of like how the Mongols depend on horses for everything.
right? And then that creature is also strange because it's got 120-foot wingspan and a huge body like a cow, but the head is like a deer with antlers and stuff,
Yeah, it's like a
right?
dragon because they
Yeah,
have those
and it
horns.
shoots fire. Yeah, it
Yeah,
shoots fire. So I thought that was interesting, like creating all these new creatures and all. And the other reason why I thought of them as uh Vikings is the way they call their master, like the leadership. They call them like Thanes, right?
yeah.
So if you remember Hamlet, I believe Hamlet they call him a Thane or something
Hmm.
like that.
Yeah.
I But I don't remember if Hamlet is actually a Viking or
Well,
Scandinavian.
it's Scandinavian. Yeah.
Yeah, so some kind of Scandinavian. So yeah, and basically, they're savage. They're a little more savage. They have war clubs. They don't really wear armor. They're just like they're kind of bare in what they wear. They're nomadic, and basically Luan finds this new culture. Yeah, he incidentally gives them enough clues for them to return to
Well, yeah,
Dara.
they trick him, right? Because they're like,
Yeah,
oh, we actually had visitors from your land before, but they all died from a disease, and now like your custom is to bury them in their homeland, which is apparently very important in their culture. So
yeah,
one believed them, and he was like, okay, I'll help you find a way through, to return the bodies of the dead. So
right,
yeah, he accidentally gives them the solution, but not before he stumbles on the truth.
right. And the only reason why he gives them the solution is because they torture someone else, and
Yeah.
that guilt would get to him. Okay, another thing we have to go over is this expanding cast list because it is huge. So before we get into that, Jason, who are your favorite characters in this particular story?
I liked Lon from book one, and I like him in book two.
Hmm.
Let's see. I like the Viking princess.
She's smart. I will
Yeah,
say that.
yeah. Let's see. Zomi's cool. I mean, Thera in the second half comes into her own.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and of course, Jin's cool.
Jin for sure. Yeah, it's the same with me. It's really funny. I really like the people that think more than act, but not in a political way. They're acting on their own nature. So so Luan, Jin, I love I love Zomi. I thought she because Ken puts in so much time on Zomi, right?
Yeah,
He he writes her entire origin, and then I think Zomi is his character. He's just like, all right, this is the character to watch because she is throughout this entire book. And then I do think Thera is really interesting. I really grew to enjoy her in the second act.
yeah.
Um,
I don't think I don't think this is her book yet.
yeah,
I think this is Zomi's book because Thera, like we know that she's basically the chosen one. She's the heir. She's the preferred heir, right?
right,
Um, but like we don't really see much of her until like the very last, like eighth, like not eighth, like last quarter of the book, where she's helping Zomi, basically trying to figure out how to win the war.
right.
So I definitely think the next book, book three, is gonna be like Thera's book.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Why don't we talk more about like the bigger picture? Because this book is so massive that I don't know. Should we do like a kill count? You know what I mean? Because a lot of the people we knew die, right?
Yep, yep, yep. So tell me, some of your notable deaths that stuck with you.
Okay, I'll do that real quick. But before I do that, I just want to say I wish someone did die and they never did. But yeah, well, okay. So man, I'm gonna go with Jin 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 Mazoda's death with
Hmm.
what was the other guy? It was the brother. So there was two brothers in the first book, and they got
Yeah,
split up. The Firo, right?
yeah, Daff.
Daff, Daff, and so at the end of the book, like there's finally a showdown between Jim Mazzotta, Daf Defiro Miro, and the Thane, like the leader of all
Yeah,
the Ryukyu.
Tenryo.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm gonna look it up real quick. His name is
It's actually a
Tenryo
very
Roten.
yeah, it's a very Japanese name.
Yeah, so they might have some Japanese in it too.
Yeah, yeah,
But so like they're fighting, and basically Defiro is taking the brunt of the beating, while Jim will go around and like slash around him,
yeah.
right?
Which was weird because she's using um
Mata,
uh yeah,
Mata
Mata
Zindu.
Zindu's old sword,
Yeah,
which according to him, like he was like the only one big enough to use it. So I'm like, basically, if Jin could even lift it, she could a few swings would probably tire her out, right? So
exactly.
basically, Daff was like holding him off while Jin was like trying to like swing again.
Right. And that was a strategy, right? That was the strategy, because they needed to get what's his name?
Tenryo?
Tenryu close. So Tenryu is pretty much beating down on him, and he's so close that finally, I forgot. Does he strike through him, Defiro?
Yeah, Daff, I think he just bear hugs him and then Jin just stabs through. But then she misses. Or she doesn't miss, but doesn't like it doesn't kill him.
It doesn't go deep enough, right?
Yeah.
And so the way all three of them die is Zomi has a spear, or well, like one of the arrows,
It's like a lance, right?
a lance.
Like
Yeah,
the like the electric one.
exactly. And in within that lance, there's like this little pretty much taser. It's like a charge inside. It's a jar, ogi jar is what they
Yeah.
call it, and you have to shatter the jar for the energy to dispel. And basically, so Jim Mazzotta stabs Tenryu, whatever his name is, close to the chest, and then Zomi stabs Jin, breaks the jar, and there's a huge electrical charge that goes through all three of them, killing all three of them instantly. I thought that was dope. That was so cool, and it was really well written. The second death is Kunigaru,
Hmm.
and it just shows how smart and clever he is, because what he does is he pretty much gives himself tetanus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He gets captured by the Ryukyu clan, and he finds like a broken nail, a rusted nail, and he pretty much just stabs himself or cuts himself with it, and he lets that fester. So near the end of his life, he's basically in a fever dream, just laying around, and then he sacrifices his life because he knows that he needs to tell everyone what his succession plan is, pretty much. Because
Yeah.
throughout the book, it's talking about who's going to succeed him as king, and his thought has always been, none of my sons are really that good enough to be king. I
Right.
would
So
rather,
you have
yeah,
Timu, who is like the smart one, supposedly. Then
yeah,
you have Firo, who's like the warrior, charismatic one.
yeah,
And according to I guess everyone, Kuni and Jia, neither Timu nor Firo are suitable to be like next emperor.
exactly. Or they just haven't learned enough, you know.
Yeah. Yep.
So basically, he sacrifices his life and he jumps out of the enemy ship, pretty much. And while he does that, he yells, Thera, I want you to be the empress, and your mother will be, emperor, like empress, regent until you're
Yep.
of age, right?
Hmm.
And then it's just cool how they write it, because basically he jumps into the water, and while he's jumping, he sees Mata, like, come come with me now,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
come to me. And I don't remember, did the Krubin like bring him down? Like, I feel like,
I don't remember. I
yeah,
just remember he wakes up and he's like before the gods, like the judgment of the gods, and he's like, oh, I need more time. There's so much to be done. And then
Yeah.
one of the gods are like, oh, they always say that,
Yeah.
And Cooney's like, yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah. So what about you?
Yeah, Cooney's was, I guess it had to happen,
Yeah.
but I felt like I don't know. As I said before, I feel like he basically like didn't really do anything in book two.
Right.
Um, besides like he just falls for traps and stuff. Like one thing is like a lot of the old characters, they seem to have been toned down drastically. Like they all make dumb decisions. They're not as cool as they were in book one.
Yeah, and another thing is pride is a huge thing in this book.
Hmm.
Like pride is what causes the downfall of a bunch of these characters, especially Kunigaru.
And then not really a death, but Timu,
Yeah.
how he was written to be like, such like a strong, even though he's physically weak, he's like strong will and like really smart.
Yeah.
And he just like the Viking prince is like, hey, I like you, and he's like, oh shit, I'm gonna like switch sides for you now. Obviously, it's a little bit longer than that, but that's basically what happens, and he
Well,
becomes like the enemy claim to the throne, basically.
it's not longer than that, Jason. It's a chapter. Literally, it's a
Yeah,
chapter.
and I'm like, I don't know. Yeah,
It is a classic case of Stockholm syndrome. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And
and
and it
then
it does help that she's hot.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and then Firo, he helps discover electricity, but that's all he does.
Yeah, that's true.
So I feel like we're told that he's not suitable for the throne, but I don't know. I feel like we're just supposed to roll with it because that's what we're told. We don't really see it that much.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Another thing about Firo is though the way they write him is that he is very like he wants action, right?
Hmm.
So he's like quick on the trigger finger, but at the same time they also write that he's actually mentally more like Kunigaru. So at the end of the day, that's why I was saying he might not be suitable yet, but if he learned, he could be. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yep.
So it's just because he's like the second youngest child, so he's probably the more spoiled, and so he has that attitude where it's like I'll do what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Um,
if he's able to get past that, I think he'd be okay.
yeah. Another death
Yeah.
that was kind of sad was Rin Coda.
Oh, the
He's like,
suicide.
I don't remember him being that dumb in book one.
He
Like I
wasn't.
remember he was pretty crafty in his own way,
Yeah.
like pretty cunning.
Yeah.
But now in this book, he's just a fool. So I'm like, what happened? And he
Actually,
basically hates himself because Gia manipulated him, and he just fell for it.
I was gonna bring that up because I want to say, who do you think was the biggest antagonist in this book?
Right. Yeah, and that brings me to like, I think my biggest con in this book is Gia. Like, I don't remember anything besides one statement in book one,
Uh huh.
foreshadowing this turn in her character. Because
Right.
remember in book one, she does mention like Cooney, like if you want to basically come back, then you have to take another bride. And
Right.
then while they're talking about it, she's like, one day we might like become rivals, like your new bride and I. But
Hmm.
we'll like. She basically says we'll worry about that later. But
Yeah.
now here, she is um, she's like pulling all the strings. She's like the puppeteer here,
Yeah.
And then I think Ken Liu was going. He needed someone to be the bad guy, basically.
Yeah.
Not really bad guy because he just needed someone to do the wrong things for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And I wasn't convinced like Ja was like this at all.
I was not either.
So it sounds like a completely new character to me.
Yeah, because I don't remember her ever being so conniving. And then,
Yeah, and then she seems kind of bitter in this one.
yeah.
So I'm like, something happened between book one and book two. I know
Well,
like there was some time, but
No, I could feel the bitterness at the end of book one, the first book.
yeah, but here it's like
It goes
magnified.
100%, yeah.
Yeah,
And it goes back to a really interesting idea, and that is the what is that word, like who's gonna like successors,
yeah, yeah,
right? And that was a huge thing in Jade War, Jade Legacy, but here it's just even crazier because it makes that's what makes Gia crazy, because she's like, I want the right person to rule, but I want them to do it for the people and do it right, and the right way is the way I say.
yeah. I
She's
mean, from what I got, her idea was like, we are now in a new era. There's
Yeah,
no need for weapons and people who basically are weapons. Like people like Jin, we don't
yeah,
need her anymore. People like Mata Zindu, we don't need. So that means people like Firo, they need to be like eliminated basically.
right. Any
And
threat
then
to her as
yeah,
well.
so I'm like, that's a very, I don't know, that's like a very naive to me idea. Like if you ask me, like I don't personally agree with that. I'm like,
Yeah,
there violence will, like, as long as there's people, there will be violence.
yeah,
Like you can try to kill the generals and warmongers now, but there'll always be more.
yeah,
So I'm like, okay, she's very smart, right? Like she's like playing 4D chess. Like she's pulling all the strings, but
right.
I'm like, her capabilities don't really match up with her ideals. Like
Yeah, because
for such an advanced puppeteer and you know court intrigue person, like that's a very childlike, very naive idea to me.
it's very idealistic, right?
Yeah,
And then the other thing is, she causes most of the death in the first part of the book, which is, you know, I just want to be like, Gia, what happened? Why don't you just make like an herbal tea for you to like calm down? Just chill out, smoke some weed or something. I know you got weeds in there that will help you. And you know what I did really like is the scenes where Kunigaru is actually in the garden with Thera, just talking about how gardening really, really calms him down, brings him a peace of mind, uh, like one with his kingdom.
yeah,
Because you have to look at every section of the garden. They don't always coalesce, so you got to figure out a way to make them like grow properly without, you know, attacking each other, pretty much.
yeah,
So I thought that was really interesting, like, and a good that was a good encapsulation of how I remember Kunigaru. Like, other than the fact that he's crafty,
yeah,
he's always been like really like looking at all groups of people and trying to figure out, okay, how does this mesh, right?
yeah,
But then later in the book, before we get to the second part that you're talking about, he starts doing like crazy stuff because of his pride. It's all pride. Like, why would they rebel against me? Because there's a subplot where a lot of the old Mata Zindu crew are just trying to like rebel, and this is before the Liuku people come in, and all of a sudden Kunigaru is like, I can't believe these people would rebel against me. You know what I did for them? And he pretty much just goes crazy and like fights the rebellion pretty much.
yeah,
And that's so against character for him.
yeah. I think basically with all these new characters, they had to bring in conflict, so they foisted that burden onto the older characters,
Yeah, agree.
to just to let the new characters shine.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, what about the death of Luan Zia?
Yeah, so I had no idea he was that old.
Yeah,
Because like right before, like I knew he was older, but I didn't know he was like an old man.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean it's pretty sad because he's like all he does is he just wants to learn and explore.
yeah,
And I'm like, yeah, man, just like go for it. But Of
Yeah.
course, he gets captured and tortured. And I think he's found. Was he found after the initial invasion?
Yeah, he was. He was found with Oga Zamodu,
Yeah,
Oga, right?
Zomi's father, right?
Zomi's father that disappeared a long time ago,
Yeah,
like 20
ages
years
ago.
ago.
Yeah. Yeah, he was captured and he's basically like never gonna recover.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was pretty sad, but Zomi is like the basically the new one, so out with the old, in with the new, right?
Yeah. So what about themes? Like what are some of the takeaways like from this particular book that might be a little different from the first book?
Yeah. I thought there was a much stronger emphasis on nature because
Yeah.
remember the whole clincher that were revealed at the end is fucking berries. Remember that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was a throwaway in the first part of the book too.
Yeah, yeah. But basically, the dragons need a special type of berry in order to basically live and reproduce. And
Yeah.
the invaders are desperate for this because Lon, in his final act of defiance, burns their supply. So they're basically running low.
Right. And man, the strategy in this book is so crazy. That's another thing I really enjoyed about this book.
Oh, you want to talk about the ending battle scene?
Dude, that was so cool. No, no, I can't do it. I think you would do so much better.
Okay, so yeah, this is crazy. So basically, near the end of the book, right before the final showdown,
Yeah.
our main characters are pretty much pushed in a corner,
Yeah.
and you have like all of the invading forces converging, and they're like, what does Dara have up its sleeve? And it's basically eight, I think it's eight brand new experimental airships, like completely new design. They're like,
Yeah.
I think they're all collapsible, like they're portable.
Were
So
they
they're
like
able to be.
boxes?
No, I think they were like skeletons, like just bare bones to be like super light and super maneuverable.
Hmm.
So you had eight of those holding off like a whole fleet of invaders and dragons. And they're like using these formations. Oh, and they just, I remember we mentioned they discovered electricity and they
Right.
discovered how to shoot fire basically.
Oh, flamethrower. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They did
Yeah.
that.
So they basically had eight warships armed with that technology. So
Yeah,
the last
and
battle is like this something out of Star Trek where they're like switching formations, and they're like revealing their weapons as slow as they can to
yeah.
maintain that advantage.
Yep.
And like when the airships starting getting destroyed, they have to like change formations to like get better coverage. And it's
Yeah.
crazy. It's like something out of a science fiction novel.
And the battle is like 2 chapters long. The chapters are like 20 pages. So they actually go by really quick, but it's so well described that you know every single beat. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then while he's doing that, while he's choreographing this fight scene, he's also telling you, "Oh, this is how we created the technology." Like while all that is happening. And I was just like, "Wow, this guy is crazy." This because it the fight scene feels like a futuristic thing with Braveheart attached to it too,
yeah,
right? Because you got these dragons flying down at them, and if you guys remember in Braveheart, like one of the first battles they win is because they're like mooning the Scottish people. Scottish people get cocky, start racing down with their horses, and what they didn't know is that the Scottish people had these long spears, and they basically pull them up right when the horses get near and kill all the horses, right? That's pretty much what they're doing here. They like, I think they kill like eight of those Garinophins like at the very beginning,
yeah,
but there's still like 20, and slowly they whittle them down with like these electric bombs,
Well, they're
And
like
then
giant crossbows that shoot these
yeah,
basically exploding crossbow bolts with electricity in them.
yeah,
Basically, the way Ken Liu describes is like, oh, they shoot a crossbow and it pierces the armor, and
yeah,
that would have been it. But wait, there's more. Inside the crossbow, there's this. But wait, there's more. He like
yeah.
reveals it like an onion. I'm like, huh, that's pretty insane.
I want to go back to deaths really quick though.
Okay.
One death that I really didn't like is Rosanna.
Yeah,
The
that was yeah, like I thought yeah. I mean, it kind of it was very strongly hinted at, right? Like
yeah,
with what Jiao's planning, like there's no way she can let Risana go free for very long.
right. But pretty much Rosanna just walks her up to like the roof of a tower and makes it look like a suicide.
Yeah, it's very the way Jia like handled it is also very cold.
Yeah,
Very I get I guess I wanted to say out of character, but by the end of the book, that is her character now.
yeah.
So like yeah, it's coming from book 1, it's like a complete 180.
And you remember Mata Zindu's aunt, or was it his
Yeah,
aunt?
Soto.
Yeah, Soto, right? So she's still pretty cool in this book, but like she pretty much says at the end of this book, Jia, I've seen what you've done throughout this whole time, from the beginning of the book to the end of the book. I have no idea what you're doing, but if you step out of line, I will kill you. Or she, I don't know if she said I will kill you, but pretty much she said you will have to answer for what you have done.
Yeah.
So I really like that she sticks to her guns. Like right now, she's loyal to Jia because she's seen how Jia has grown. But like in this second book, she's kind of like, okay, I've seen what you've done here, and I don't completely agree with it, but I know what you're trying to do. But if you step out of line, you're gonna end just as badly. I'm
Yeah.
letting you know right now. So
Yep.
yeah, I
Yeah.
I really respect her character throughout. And dude, this women empowerment in this book is crazy, but it is very well done. And a lot of these ladies, when I read them, they remind me of like family members. like
Like who? Tell me more.
like so like I totally see my sister as Thera, just like really smart. She's just really really smart. And and she makes good choices, right? And then like
Which
yeah,
one reminds you of your mom?
my mom my mom is kind of like Gia, but not to that crazy.
No, no.
no,
Probably
my
like
mom
probably like Risana.
no, my mom is not like Rosanna. My mom would be like Soto, actually.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah. I think I think Samantha's heart is more like Rosanna, just like very kind. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, what about you?
Um None of them really remind me directly, but I can see parts of them. Like, my sister's
Yeah.
also very smart. So that's like Zomi slash Thera.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
That's a
think,
good point.
I think a lot of people can probably relate to those two.
Yeah, 100%.
Because they have like a lot of like aspirational qualities to them.
Yeah. And
Oh, should
they're
we?
lovers.
Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was I kind of saw that coming, but I'm like, oh, okay. Um,
yeah.
do you want to talk about what happens to the gods, which is pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah, it is because okay, basically the Liuku come over to take over. And when they look at the Dara gods, they realize, hey, this god is kind of like our god. And then all of a sudden, like Jason, I don't remember the gods' names, but two of them combine into one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Lutho and Tazu, the basically the opposites, like the god of logic and
And
the god of
chance.
chance,
Yeah.
basically fuse into one, which is like pretty hilarious because they hate each other.
yeah. And it's just so interesting because that's the way the Liuku have begun to worship them. So all of a sudden, the Dara gods kind of start siding, particularly with some of the Ryukyu, because of the
Yeah,
way they worship, right?
yeah,
But what I really thought was cool was at the end of the book, Luthu decides to give up his immortality to come down to the world and learn, like, and continue to discover and go to the new land. Remember that?
yeah. So I'm like, maybe that's a new character for book three, which, with Zomi,
Yeah.
and actually no, with Thera going to the Liuku lands and Zomi and Dara, maybe this new character is gonna like be our window into like this other new land.
So there are some downsides to the book, but like at the end of the day, it's we always mention this how well written it is, you know?
Yeah,
And some and that normally always raises it up. Like I may not agree with all the character turns, but after a while you're reading it, it's flowing really easily. After a couple of lulls, it it just keeps going and going and going. Like
yeah.
it speeds up. He's got a really good touch on rhythm, I feel.
Yeah. So,
Like,
I forgot to mention this when you were saying how the first
yeah.
half of the book on the examination.
Yeah.
I thought the purpose of that was to showcase why Thera would be the natural choice for the heir instead of Timu and Firo. Because if you remember, when the near the end of the exams, when all of the top performers come up and present their ideas,
Yeah.
they're all like basically like Timu and Firo kind of like share their opinion, and you kind of like see how they think, and
Yeah.
they're like close, but they're like not quite on the mark,
Right.
So I think that was one purpose. The other purpose is to show off like the culture, which is like the three main flows of philosophy. I don't remember the names of all of them, but there's like Fluxist,
Yeah.
there's incentivist, and there's something else. They're like three different ways of thinking, which
Right.
is referenced all throughout the book.
Yeah.
So I think it was like a way to, I don't know what his purpose in like showing that off was. Maybe there are like parallels to like a real world way of thinking as well, I don't know. But
Right.
yeah, I think while I agree like it was not the most exciting stuff, like if you're in
Yeah.
the mood to like think about stuff like philosophy and ways to like tackle problems, it's a good read. But yeah, it's you have to be in a specific mood, right?
Agreed. And I think that's why it took me so long to read it, because up to a point I was just like, why does he keep going on about this? I want to see some action, because I'm a I'm a very simple-minded young man.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. Like I said before, the first half did not do it for me as much, but what I did enjoy is Zomi and Luan's adventures together. I would have rather read that, you know?
Yeah.
I love the small moments too. I even like it when they're when you mentioned it just now, like the brothers and sisters, they're always getting into trouble. They're always
Hmm.
trying to listen into other people's talks and stuff. And yeah, you get all these different perspectives. I really enjoy that. What I didn't enjoy is like the main teacher, right? And how that guy remember when the Liuku first joined, and then he went out there to like see what they were like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he pretty much just laid out their entire battle strategies because he thought that the Liuku people were idiots and needed and were unrefined, so he looked down on them. I was just like, dude, does this guy never learn? Because th- that was his main contributing factor in his defeat, like in the first book.
Yeah.
Other than that, I did enjoy it, but these books are so freaking long. Jason, we decided to take a break from the series, right?
Very a short break. We
Short
won't be
break.
gone for long because there's a lot to remember, and I'd hate for all this hard work to go to waste. Because let me just reiterate: when Ken Liu starts writing about science, like he will write in a way where you can basically do this at home. Like when
Yeah.
they discover electricity, It's very detailed, like to the point where even my head was like spinning because I'm like, okay, I know it's electricity, but he's like going through every step of how it works, which
Yeah.
like you've got to give props. Like he did his homework.
Yeah, green.
Yeah.
At first, I thought it was magnetism, but yeah, I got to electricity later.
Yeah, like at the beginning, I'm like, oh, what could it be? But yeah, it's definitely electricity.
Yeah, and do you kind of want to explain that really quick because it's kind of an
No,
interesting.
I don't think I can anymore.
No, no,
That
no.
was
How who introduced it to them, right?
yeah, it was like a magician, a street magician.
Exactly. It was a
So
freaking
yeah, it was like one of the few chapters dedicated, actually the only chapter with Firo's point of view,
yeah.
which I kind of wanted more because I don't know, he's like talked about it a lot, but you don't really get into his head and
And
like
he's kind of
see
a strategist in this
yeah,
particular chapter.
yeah, like he understands the value of street performers, kind of
Hmm.
like Cooney did. You know how Cooney in book one's like taking on everyone, learning anything from anyone.
Mm.
So basically, the street performer has this like technique,
Yeah.
and slowly over time, Firo gets him to like reveal how it works, and it's just so intricate. Like I don't think I remember.
I don't. I
I don't
definitely.
even know how electricity works now.
Yeah. Same here. Okay, so before we end today's episode, Jason, what are we reading?
So next time we will be diving into a graphic novel, a series that I actually am excited about because I've wanted to like dive into this a long time ago, but never really had the chance. It's a series called Monstrous by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda.
Takeda?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the art's actually really good, so I'm excited
yeah.
to finish book volume one because I
So,
did start before and I failed to finish, not because it was bad, but because I got caught up in other stuff.
oh, so you did start it, you just didn't finish it.
Yeah, I think I got maybe like 20 pages in.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm on page 50 and it's like pretty freaking cool.
Okay. All right. I'll
Yeah.
catch up. Don't worry.
Okay, okay. So, guys, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll be talking to you in another month, I think.
Yep. We'll
So
see you
keep
then.
on reading.
And subscribe.
All right, we'll talk to you guys later. Bye.